also pledged to robustly prosecute those that fall foul of the guidelines, but freedom of speech must be protected, so tackling trolls may need a thick skin more than a good lawyer.
From the social media consultancy company Ennis Design. Gary, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thank you, John.
What are the implications then for Scotland?
I think some of the things we need to make clear straight away is that, while the news today is around the legislation and the new guidelines which apply to England and Wales, Scotland isn't without its own laws which apply to social media and bad behaviour on social media. We have the breach of the peace legislation, which is being successfully used to bring people to task for things that they have said on social media. We also have, in keeping with the football chat from earlier, we have some of the newer legislation, such as offensive behaviour at football and communication threats. So there are a number of things in Scotland that still very much apply. What's interesting, I think, for the Scottish users of social media is that while these guidelines are for English prosecuting lawyers to help decide what should be prosecuted or indeed what should not be prosecuted. If I'm, for example, using Twitter up here in Glasgow, the things I say are still being seen across the globe, down in England, down in America, anywhere at all. So it's still highly relevant to be aware that everything we say can and potentially will be used against you in other courts of law, etc.
So you could be prosecuted in another country, for
In
example.
theory, absolutely, yes. It's a global communications tool, and unfortunately not enough people treat it as such. They forget that these things are very much public platforms, and I might only have 10, 15, 50 friends that I think my conversation is going to. That has the potential at times to be seen by the world.
And who is actually going to police this then?
Well, that's an interesting one. I mean, Strathclyde Police in the past have publicly said that they will not police, abusive behaviour on Twitter, etc. It's more so when it's reported to them. And so it is when things are actually reported by the general public or by the people being abused themselves, actually raising the issue. The Tom Daly one is a great example. He brought that to light by retweeting the offensive tweets and raising that profile and taking that to the much wider audience. And that's when, the law arguably got involved with it.
Should Twitter, Facebook themselves take more responsibility?
I think there is a role for that. I mean, Facebook have already got to the table with regard to education to look at bullying within schools on the platform of Facebook, etc. So they're not against being part of trying to protect the individuals using these platforms, and I think there potentially is a role. I also, one of the issues I have with the guidelines is I think we're focusing at the wrong end. I think we're focusing on what happens when somebody gets into trouble, and I'd much rather see a kind of prevention better than cure approach, whereby let's focus more, let's have more talk about educating and making the users of social media much more aware of the implications.
A lot of the people, the trolls we talk about, for example,
Yes.
are they not deliberately on there to provoke people and they hide behind anonymity?
Of course they are, and you know what, whether you like it or not, there's an argument for it's their right to have an opinion, it's their right to have a go. And what these guidelines are, and it will be interesting to see how they apply and how they're carried out, is where does just me having a go at a particular celebrity I don't like or a particular brand, where do we cross the line between me actually just having a right to say what I think and crossing over into criminal behaviour?
Is that not part of the problem? Some vague notions in what the DPP said. A message must be obviously beyond the threshold. Who decides?
Well, exactly. Who does decide that? And the Paul Chambers one is a great example. Paul Chambers, who publicly said he was going to blow up Doncaster Airport, Robin Hood Airport. Technically, to the letter of the law, at that stage, breaking the law. And so was arrested, went through all the prosecution. And, a year and a half of what the legal profession was up in arms over that. This guy does not pose a credible threat. He was never going to blow up an airport. So it'll be good to maybe have common sense guidelines that begin to take away from the letter of the law to let's apply a bit of common sense and actually start prosecuting the ones that need prosecuting while leaving this what is effectively a very powerful and, for some people, an incredibly useful communication tool that gives them a right to say what they feel.
Gary, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Quick look at 5 things happening tomorrow. Alex Salmond will face opposition leaders in the last First Minister's questions of 2012. WikiLeaks founder and fugitive Julian Assange is to hold a news conference marking 6 months in the Ecuadorian embassy. Scotland's most popular baby names will be announced. Celtic find out who they'll meet in the last 16 of the Champions League. And the Irish rock band The Saw Doctors are playing the Barrowlands in Glasgow. That's all from Scotland Tonight. Tomorrow evening, a panel of guests will reflect on the year in politics. Until then, Edinburgh-based lecturer Walid Salhab has unveiled a stunning new time-lapse video on the city in winter. Here's one last thing.
The National Weather, brought to you by C.R. Smith, the man in the blue and white van.